Thank you so much for being here. We're really excited to have you all. My name is Sarah Lundquist, and I'm the Communications Director for Families for a Livable Climate. And before we introduce tonight's wonderful storytellers, we wanted to share just a little bit of background about the Montana Climate Stories Project and why we're all here tonight. The project was launched in 2020 through a partnership between Families for a Livable Climate and Stories for Action. And the goal was to provide a space for Montanans to share and hear personal stories about climate impacts and solutions. Since the project's beginning, we've collected and shared nearly 100 stories and counting from all over Montana about everything from wildfire smoke impacts to extreme heat, drought, and flooding, to student-led climate projects, to food sovereignty, to gardening and regenerative agriculture, and lots in between. The stories range widely in topic area, but one thing they all have in common is that they reflect our shared desire for climate action and a longing for a healthy and connected future. We know that Montanans want a climate-stable future. 68% of Montanans support regulating carbon pollution, but only 36% of us talk about climate change, at least occasionally. So what we are aiming to do here is to close that gap between those who are concerned about climate change and those who are speaking up, to end climate silence and build unstoppable momentum for climate healing. We know that storytelling can help us get there, as a deeply human tradition that has been used for millennia to build connection, bridge divides, and strengthen communities and inspire action and solutions. We are grateful to everyone here who has shared their stories or who are about to. And we hope this night inspires you to infuse more storytelling into your lives and to use it as a catalyst for change. And I'm also giving a quick plug too for a research project that's going on that's asking people to explain their experiences with climate change. So if you're interested in that research project, let me know and I can connect you with the person who's conducting that research. I'm going to end with a quote from a climate storytelling article from the Redford Center. Stories matter. They hold the power to make people feel seen, help communities connect issues and take action, broaden our intersectional lens, and lead us to the solutions we've been searching for. Thanks so much for being here tonight. Without further ado, I'm going to invite up our MC, Amber Schaefer, who's here, one of our partners from All Nations Health Center.
Thanks, Sarah. Ampeito ashte, Amber imakiapiye. Hello and good day. My name is Amber Schaefer. I am the community organizer at All Nations Health Center with Common Good Missoula. And on behalf of All Nations, we're just very happy to partner with this project. As many of you know, oral storytelling and traditions are a big part of all of our tribes and cultural history. And so we really feel that it's just makes a connection to the shared stories and histories that we have when we share them orally. We also want to just acknowledge that we are on the traditional homelands of the Salish and Coleus Bay people. And although as an organization, we feel that land acknowledgements can often be a tokenized part of public meetings and events, there are times that I feel that it really plays into the work and the project that we're working on. And I truly believe that's true tonight because I think that we do feel that we're in true partnership with our partners for this event, for Climate Smart Missoula and Families for a Livable Climate and Missoula County. Just being able to be invited to be a part of this event from the beginning, not just being asked as like a native voice, but being how we saw this event happening and how we saw collecting the stories went, not only for us, but around the state. And so we just wanted to thank you guys. And I think in grounding it to this event and this kind of work in regards to land acknowledgements, Though these were prominently the homelands of the Salish and Kalish Bay, many other tribes considered this valley and the Bitterroot part of their traditional homelands and territory as well, which included the Shoshone, the Crow, the Kootenai, and the Blackfeet. And I think when we think about how all those different tribes were able to share the space and resources for the health of their people in a way that was respectful and loving to the environment is just a wonderful example of how we want to address climate change and how we respond to that and how we move in the future. So with that, we will go ahead and get started. First up, I want to welcome Ben Catton up to speak. Ben is a Missoula-born teacher, father, writer, adventurer, and goofball. His interest in places where mountains influence daily life, both environmentally and culturally, has led him to live in Wyoming, Idaho, Alaska, and Chile. But he always finds a way to orbit back to Missoula. So, Ben.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Thank you very much to Amber for the introduction, to Caitlin and to Sarah for hosting this event, and for everybody for being open to creating dialogue around climate change. Excited to be a part of it and grateful to be invited to speak. As stated, I'm a Missoula returnee, born and raised here, and I've orbited other places, but now back with my wife and kids who are in the audience with us. And I'm typically a teacher, but this year I'm a stay-at-home dad. So that said, hopefully all of you are a more sympathetic audience than my 3-year-old and 9-month-old that I practiced with. There's no unicorns, dragons, or princesses, or peekaboo in my story, so they weren't that into it. My story was titled Blackened Out. I can't recall why I chose such a caustic name. My brothers and I grew up in a no video games household until late middle school, when Nintendo 64 made its way into our household through a grandma and a Christmas. We were quickly addicted to Mario, Diddy Kong Racing, Star Fox, Zelda, the whole gamut. And our parents realized they needed to place some limits on how much time we could spend in the basement, hiding out in the beanbag chairs, playing video games. So we would try to sneak extra time. We would signal with our hands to one another quietly, make a little video game gesture, and try to sneak downstairs, get some time in. If our parents busted us, they'd come downstairs, send us outside. Hey, you need to be outside. That's where we play. So it was strange in the summer of 2000 to find my butt planted in one of those beanbag chairs with a Nintendo 64 controller in hand, midday, with complete parental consent and no limits. Outside, thick wildfire smoke smothered the valley. Outside, being outside, was a hazard to our health. The windows were closed in mid-August heat. We didn't have AC, but at least the basement stayed cool. I can recall the awe of those first thick smoke sunsets. You could actually stare at the sun. It was a Japanese flag falling on Blue Mountain. The next summer, my Boy Scout troop backpacked across the burnt Anaconda Pintler Wilderness. It was a landscape of soot. We spent 7 nights out, and we were a gang of tweens and a few brave parents. A million trees' spines stood like nude charcoal pencils. Everything was glossy black. From a mountain pass with no parents in sight, a few friends and I rolled a boulder down the steep burnt ridgetop. Tween-age curiosity. Look out below! The tire-sized boulder leapt and kicked like a bull, trying to shake a rider as it tore down the slope. Miniature explosions of black dust burst from each point of contact it made with the mountainside. It hit one of the charcoal trees and blew a hole through the side of it. The brittle tree skeleton shuddered and toppled. We screamed and pumped our fists in delight. We launched dozens more boulders, assaulting the scorched earth. The land was beginning to heal, and it was generous. I'll probably never eat as many morels in my life. They were ever-present gifts to be found under thousands of blackened Yule logs. We paired them with fresh-cut trout. Yum. We noticed other life reemerging from the burn. Pom-poms of bear grass sprouted from tenacious rhizomes. Swaths of purple fireweed shimmered like mirages in a black sand desert. The final day of our hike was to be a 20-miler so that we'd qualify ourselves for a merit badge. The shiny, friable, shadowless expanse became a waterless hellscape when we missed a trail junction, scorched beyond recognition, and added a half dozen more bonus miles onto our 20 miles. An intrepid mom became woozy with heat exhaustion. We exited the wilderness, sooty as chimney sweepers and nearly as parched as the land itself. I've orbited in and out of Missoula throughout my life, but after starting a family, my wife and I decided to put down roots here once again. We moved back in June 2021, and the smoke settled into the valley shortly after we did. Smoke from massive fires across the whole West. We found ourselves locked inside with the windows closed. Had we blacked out this obvious environmental factor while deciding to move home? We constantly checked the weather to see what the air quality index indicated for the safety of our infant daughter, Maya. Could we go outside? Will Maya have asthma if we raise her here? What will summers in Missoula, Montana really be like for her? We wondered in fear. We now have 2 little ones. Our baby boy Sylvan was born in August 2022. He's had a few of his own breathing issues, and these questions intensified for us. When it's time, I hope to take Maya and Sylvan backpacking through the Anaconda Pintler Wilderness. With any luck, we'll have a morel and trout dinner. Hopefully their lungs will be strong and clean. We have seen how quickly and with what determination life can regenerate and repopulate when left to its own devices and given a chance. The human element of our global ecosystem paused substantially during the pandemic, making space for healing and other organisms that rushed in, also hoping for a new balance. Rumors and sightings of dolphins in the Venice canals, or bears and large ungulates here on the University of Montana campus, demonstrate that our partners are ready and waiting in the wings. We must strive for a chance, or for a culture that gives us all a chance, a culture that gives our children a chance. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Ben. Up next, we have Josh Slotnick. So Josh has been farming in Missoula with his family for 30 years. You can go ahead and come on up, Josh. In 1996, Josh co-founded both Garden City Harvest and the Peas program in environmental studies at the University of Montana. And he also currently serves as one of the Missoula County Commissioners. Thanks, Josh.
Thanks, Amber. And thanks you all for coming, and thanks for the Families for Livable Climate folks for hosting this event, and all the other co-sponsors too. So there's 3 threads to the story I want to tell you all. The first one is farming. The second one is being a dad. And the third one is being an older person. For me, history is real because I've been able to live through a bunch of it, and I remember it clearly, as you did in 2000. So first, the farming piece. Unlike other occupations, farming tells you what you're supposed to do when. The roadmap is the seasons. Spring, summer, fall. And spring, summer, fall each break down into a triad. There's an early, middle, late spring, early, middle, late summer, early, middle, late fall. And those times of year aren't dictated or described by the calendar, but literally by day length and temperature and soil moisture. And certainly in farming, there's mountains of stress, but there's no angst, if you get the difference. You don't have to wonder about, why am I here? What am I supposed to be doing? Should I be doing this or not? The conditions, the earth itself tells you what you're supposed to do, and you follow. In this way, farming is almost religious. And I don't mean in the hereafter or sins or something like that. I mean faith. I had such absolute faith in the earth itself, I did not question. I just followed. Second big thread, being a dad. And I totally empathize with, I wanted to hug you from a distance. So I have 3 children. They're all big now. For what feels like a small but huge part of my life was completely oriented by those kids and meshed in farming, tending and caring to them was like farming in that it told me what to do when. Certainly tons of stress, but no angst. It's bedtime, so there's a bedtime story and a bath and a lot of conversation and hang out, and then you go to bed, and then I'm making lunches and rivers of laundry and all of that. I didn't question, I just followed. And that last bit, the last thread, is history. And it's strange to say this in a culture that totally worships youth and beauty. It's wonderful to be older and to have lived through history and internalized it in a way that I never could have earlier. So the meat of this story starts on a Tuesday in the year 2000. I was vending at farmer's market. And all at once, there was a roar. And it was like 100 degrees out, and it had been 100 degrees for a few days, which was very anomalous, not usual. I farmed all through the 90s, never saw anything like it. There was a big roar. Now I want to step back a minute and talk about the year 2000. So as some of you may remember, there was concern that on December 31st, 1999, at midnight, the clocks would tick, and the whole world that's run by computers would come to a grinding halt. The banking system, credit cards, the power grid, it was all just going to stop. And people did what people do. They bought bullets and canned food and dug in and got ready, and nothing really happened. But that whole year just felt a little off and different because it was Y2K, Y year 2K, year 2000. It was a big time of change and transition, and anything could happen. It just felt different than any other year. So 3-4 days of 100 degrees strung together and a Tuesday night, and I hear a roar so loud that I can barely speak to my helper at farmer's market. That roar was hundreds of Hell's Angels, outlaw bikers, descending off the highway into Missoula. They came to Missoula on their summer run. They camped up at Marshall pretty much without drama. That same time, there was also the Rainbow Gathering. So downtown on that weekend after the Tuesday I'm mentioning, there were rainbow people gathered around on corners waiting to gather in some national forest nearby. Tons of college kids and townies hoping to get a look at some outlaw bikers, and it was still 100 degrees. So that Tuesday night, we heard the roar of the motorcycles exiting off of Orange Street. And shortly after that, somebody driving down the road tossed out a lit cigarette on Highway 90 into the dry grass north of the highway, and fire raced toward the peace sign that used to be over there. Huge, if you don't know, it was a giant peace sign on a billboard. It's behind the Peace Center now. Fire raced toward peace in Y2K, and hundreds of outlaw bikers and rainbow people descended upon our town. And soon after that, the Bitterroots caught fire, and the sky filled with smoke, the valley filled with smoke. I mentioned seasonality, how we orient, or if you're a farmer, how you orient yourself. Well, that year, smoke ate fall. Fall is cobalt blue skies, sweatshirt crisp air in the morning, t-shirts in the afternoon, a knife edge crisp mountain silhouette on the horizon. The smoke ate it all. It could have been any summer day in Indiana for all we knew. Smoke ate fall. But it was Y2K, and I was busy with all those little kids and all that farming. And it was Y2K, right? So it just was another thing. And then it happened again a few years later, not the outlaw bikers. Oh, I forgot a little piece of this, just to add to the craziness of that heat. One night, downtown, the streets choked with people hoping to catch a glimpse of the outlaw bikers. Somebody said something incendiary, and kind of like that lit cigarette tossed out onto the highway, it all blew up. And you can check it out if you want. Type in Missoula riots. You can see it. It really happened. But it was Y2K. Crazy things were happening. I just wrote it off. Did not question my faith. Then the smoke came again a few years later, and a few years later. And when those few years pass, those kids started to grow up. So I'm gonna read you something. I wasn't counting on a microphone where I'd need an extra hand here. Here we go. Thanks. So this is written to Quinn, my son, in July of 2007. Jostling like electrons, customers shoulder for position in a wide wiggling queue 6 feet across. The people in front extend to me over our farmer's market table, stuffed plastic sacks of salad mix, bunches of carrots, handfuls of tomatoes, all poised for my right now attention. A shaggy, baggy, regular guy hands me a bag of broccoli. I put it on the scale. That's $3 in broccoli. How about $2.50? Triple digits. Third day in a row. Irrigation pipes on my shoulders burn through my shirt. Sweat stings my eyes. You were gone this afternoon and evening, being a regular kid. An intern 5 years your senior helps me move irrigation lines. The pipes clank on each other, bouncing with his all over the place paces. He sets them down, walks back and forth, picks them up. He retraces his steps, graceful as a moth careening around a porch light or a drunk headed for the door. Watching him, I wince, knowing it won't be long and you will really be gone. How many evenings have you and I done this? Well, the sky goes pink to orange, the mountains flatten to silhouette in the west. We flop lines of pipe from one side of the main line to the other, juggle end caps, openers, tees, and elbows, soak the big squash for hours, keep the seed beds damp, the mowed beds dry, where I will till on Sunday. We close the field gate on rainbirds, rooster-tailing irrigation water through warm wind. $2.50? A farmer friend says he doesn't have enough pressure, enough hours in the day to keep his place from going dry before the water makes it around again. What would it be like, he asks. Regular people pass by the scorched earth on their way to the river beach. What would it be like to not care about water? I cannot remember, and this has always been your life. I see them downtown, regular people. I'm rushing to get back, stuck at the light. They slink through the crosswalk, iced coffees in hand, cool shades, slow sundress steps, short slid halfway down boxers. What would it be like? You will know soon enough. And I will inhale these colored clouds alone and remember all this. The broccoli in the bag, not as beautiful as it could be, but respectable. The silhouetted mountains are in it. Your farm childhood. The sweat in my eyes. The burn on my shoulder. The relentless worry for water. It's all there in a sack. No, not for $2.50. Not for $3. You can't have the broccoli. Who's next? So that was 2007. Faith beginning to crack. 10 years later, I wrote this. Take my picture. Her voice came to me garbled, but I could hear her smile. Twin respirators muffling the tones. She held a cauliflower, dense, gleaming white, too big and heavy to sell at full price, without jokes about mortgages and interest rates. Cauliflower in hand, my wife stood in a lush field of vegetables, our farm on the west side of the Missoula Valley. Wildfire smoke bathed the scene in gray, ate the horizons, obliterated the mountains, and colored everything in sight. And at that very moment, the last of Hurricane Harvey's biblical rains pummeled Houston. 19 trillion gallons of water fell in 5 days, more than 4 feet of rain, while Irma bore down on the entire state of Florida, having already swept away good chunks of Barbuda, Puerto Rico, and Cuba. On the other side of the earth, new rivers coursed through Mumbai atop city streets. Surging urban torrents pulled fleeing people into open manholes and swept them out to sea. Local Montana News provides updates on percentages of fire containment, evacuation areas, event postponements. The national media features colorful stories, gushes for the Cajun Navy, using bass boats to save stranded neighbors, plucking pets off rooftops, while fetid water laps at the cleaving eaves of suburban homes. The people of Albany, Beaumont, Houston, Miami, New Orleans, Denton, Montana, are made of tougher stuff and will always put the pieces back together. We always do. Therein lies the heart of it. Bridges collapse and we have an infrastructure review. White supremacists use cars as weapons and statues start to come down. In the wake of this year's fires and storms and floods, we harvest cauliflower in the smoke, kayak through sewer water, do what needs to be done, and talk about how strong we are. Scientists struggling for defendable levels of accuracy, shy from certainty. We who work on the ground do not carry these obligations and can speak this straighter truth. Stories of resiliency make it worse.
Thank you so much, Josh. Our next storyteller came to us through a youth writing contest that we held for the upcoming issue of our magazine, The Changing Times, which we have copies of the last issue on that table if you want to check it out. The Changing Times is a biannual publication of Families for a Livable Climate, which features original writing, artwork, photography, poetry, and other contributions from Montanans of all ages. We have a wonderful volunteer magazine team, and they really wanted to center youth voices and perspectives in our upcoming issue, which is going to be released in a couple weeks, leading up to the Held v. Montana youth-led climate trial next month, which if you haven't heard of that climate trial, we also have information at our table, and we're happy to talk about it. So leading up to that trial, like I said, we wanted to really center youth voices in this issue. So it's a special issue, which features the winners of the youth writing contest that we recently hosted. We asked Montanans 18 years old and under to respond to the following prompt. Share with us your creative climate future. Imagine it is the year 2070. Using story and your imagination, tell us about what your community looks like and how people are responding. We had a lot of really excellent submissions, and Serena Carlson, our next storyteller, is the winner from her age bracket, 10 and under. So she is here to share her submission with you all. And I'm going to read her bio, too, before I introduce her. Serena is 11 years old and goes to Edgerton Elementary in Kalispell. Her middle name, Sue, comes partially from her grandma and partially after Sioux Lake in Glacier National Park. Glacier has been a big part of Serena's life so far, spending time there year after year, every year of her life. So come on up, Serena.
Hi, I am Serena. I am a 5th grader from Kalispell, and my story is called Cleaning Up. As Cecilia waited for her dad to take his Moncala turn, she thought about how Grandma could see the mountains from this window when she was a girl. Now, the view was just haze, and her grandma was in the hospital really sick. Doctors thought that her grandma was outside too much and breathed in too many of the nearby factory chemicals. Now that her grandma was not in Cecilia's house, there wasn't nearly as much laughing. Cecilia's grandma always had a joke or interesting story to share. Most of the stories were ones about hiking to glaciers and counting mountain goats in Glacier National Park. Now, when Cecilia visited Glacier, all the glaciers were melted, and it would be really lucky just to see one go. "Hey, where did you go?" "It's your turn," Cecilia's dad said. She moved her stones but didn't get very many because her mind wasn't on the game. She was distracted by her Fritz robot sweeping. Fritz did all the chores that her grandma talked about doing every day after school when she was a kid. "Hey, Dad, I was thinking about Grandma and all her stories. That got me started on the chemicals that possibly got Grandma sick. What if all our neighbors used our Fritz robots to do things like pick up trash, fix chemical pipes, and make sure the air around the factory stays clean? I would not mind sweeping and doing other chores if it meant that the robots could do work to keep people healthy and get Grandma outside in the fresh air again." I got the idea for this story from when my parents and grandparents talk about how lucky we are to live in a place like this. Sometimes, though, they talk about how in 100 years or so, the glaciers will be melting and the animals will be struggling because of climate change. I hope that we can work together and use what we have to help the world be a better place like Cecilia did in my story.
Thank you so much, Serena. I wish I was able to speak like that in front of so many people when I was your age. Took a long time. Thanks again. Up next, we have Shauna Yellow Kidney. She is a citizen of the Blackfeet Nation, has been a decade-long Missoula resident, is a loving wife, mom of 4 outstanding children, and a Two-Spirit community member that enjoys the outdoors, gathering traditional medicines, and attending ceremony with her family. She's a passionate advocate of Montana families and Indigenous justice. And you might recognize her name as well in the lawsuit the ACLU of Montana has filed against the Montana Office of Public Instruction to require monitoring and reporting of implementation of Indian education for all. And so thank you on behalf of all Indian families in Montana for being the face of that. She is a public servant, an artist, a super bike enthusiast, and will be resuming her post-bac pre-med program this fall at the University of Montana. Thanks, Shauna.
So I'm gonna, yeah. Can you guys hear me without the microphone? Is that all right? I'm gonna try this out. I'm not good with mics. So my name is Shauna Yellow Kidney. I'm really grateful to be here, and I'm really impressed by how many people are here and eager to listen and find solutions. It's really inspiring and beautiful. So a lot of the things that kept on coming up that I wanted to tell a story about was our berries, our medicines, the things that we go and harvest and gather every year up in Blackfeet country that are becoming more and more scarce because of bad storms, hail knocking off berries. There's, soil erosion. There's all sorts of factors, and you guys are a group of folks that probably know your stuff, so I'm not going to go into all that. I don't want to talk about that. What I want to talk about is the fact that we're here right now. What we're doing here in this room is powerful. We're coming together. We're assuming that we don't have all the answers, and we're trying to collaborate in a good way for our community. In my opinion, there's nothing better. So when we look at the issues that are coming up, what has happened? There's politics, there's people. We want our egos to shine. And my challenge to everyone in this room, including myself, especially as a Blackfeet woman, is to try and slide that ego just over there. Let's think about our connection with one another. Let's think about our connection with everything around us. Are we being wasteful? Are we being respectful of the things that we come in contact with? Do we treat one another with respect? This story that I'm sharing isn't really a story. It's more of a reflection of self-reflection. And I'm asking each and every person that's here to do that. Question yourself. Question what people are telling you. Yes, I am a scientist. I believe in the scientific theory. It has endless value, endless data that can point us in all sorts of directions. But we already have that, right, in dominant culture. So what I'm asking everybody to do is open your ears, open your eyes, and see that the people that were here before might have answers, and to come together in a collaborative way, just as we're doing, to make the best of our future. It's the only way that we're going to get out of this in any shape better than scorched. Look to indigenous practices. Not to go back to the lawsuit, but within Indian Education for All, what we want to teach is cultural values, cultural practices, and something that we call indigenous ways of knowing. I'll give an example. My Uncle Leon, when we're up getting the very few scarce berries that were around Blackfeet country last year, he shared with us that if you see the geese, the Canadian geese flying, and they're really high up above you, abnormally high, you know the berries are not going to be good that year. If they're in their normal domain, all is good. And it's nothing profound, but it's just one of innumerable tiny examples of things that we can get back in touch to if we just try. So I really want to thank each and every one of you, Winona, everybody that facilitated this. You guys are my heroes. I love that you're making this a community effort, and I think that's the only way that the things that we need to accomplish as humans is going to get done. So look to one another, please. Even if somebody looks scary or threatening or off-putting or has RBF or anything like that, most of us are just here and we want to help one another. So let's pull in and fix this together.
Thank you, Shauna, so much. Up next, we have Kate Wilburn. Kate is a permaculture designer, engineer, activist, teacher, and urban farmer. She could speak to any of those experiences, but comes here tonight with a full heart as a mother and as one whom the wild land held gently during hard times in their childhood.
Caitlin's going to put a piece of art up that I created to illustrate the poem that I'm going to read to you. Shauna, I love that your last word was together. It's the name of the poem that I wrote. So, lovely juxtaposition with each other. Yeah. So I have a profound love of the wild earth that was gifted to me in spite of my dominant culture in the 50s being more, suburban and better living through chemistry and some of those silly slogans from back then, because I was born one of unexpected twins, and my sister always had a more challenging time than I did. It meant that my mom and dad had a lot of attention that they needed to give to her, and they left me an awful lot alone and rarely had the space to listen to the cries of my heart. The blessing in that is that it sent me out to the beautiful wild earth that I was blessed to live next to, and there with the wood thrushes and the creek in its clay bed and the shagbark hickories, I was held. I was going to say it last, but I'll say it now. If some tears emerge as I'm reading my poem, I'm just going to breathe with it, and I ask you to breathe with them. I expect that all of us share some pieces of grief in this conversation that we're having together and in this life experience that we're living together. And the tears for me are not only grief, but also hope in the possibility for healing together. I could also speak through the lens of being an engineer. It's my academic training. And to me, engineers are problem solvers. And 40 years ago, I left corporate work because way back then, the problems that I, in my deep heart, knew we needed to be solving were the kind of legacy we were leaving with soil, with water, with air for all the ones coming behind us, including our children, our human children, and all the children of the planet. And so I'm also speaking as a mother. And it happens that my son Shane is here, and I glanced back at him, and so tears, but oh my gosh, all of us who are parents and all of us who are aunties and uncles know the hard, hard, hard work of loving children and holding them in life. And so I live now, not only for the one child that I brought into this world, but for all the children, with an intention of creating hope and tangible changes and inspiration. And I'm echoing again something that Shauna shared. For me, I think community, whatever comes, is our greatest security, being human together. So I want to let you know that there's one word that I use in this poem that you might not be familiar with. It's gravid. And gravid mothers are those who are about to give birth. So now you know what the word means. I want to appreciate 5 people who together with me supported this poem, because I had some early readers, my friend Karen Boyce, my friend Jenny Mish, who is here, who read Jenny Vader, who said, they were supportive. two other people who were even more courageous in some ways and have a close enough relationship and are excellent enough writers were willing to say, this is a little boring. So I want to name Shane in that, Shane Sater, and my friend Risa Collins, who's not here, and friends who hung in with me in making this less boring. And I also want to name Emma Skurnick, who's my wonderful art mentor. I could go to Emma and say, Emma, how do I blank? Okay, here's the poem, Together. The parched land beckons at the core of my being, in the marrow of my bones. Join with me to heal waters, air, whooping cranes, soils, deliver them from the edge. We seem to be racing for a grim future, burning air that crisps aching throats, atmospheric rivers, death from the sky. Gravid mothers did not birth young ones to wander a scorched planet, rather to thrive in the embrace of all life. Imagine, together we turn from our extractive arts, learn anew to protect the land, to tend, people of earth that we are, human hands now gentle on ground's pulse. Let us partner as neighbors with her again in every yard. We can bring home the harvest our keening hearts always knew we could. Beneath mulch coverlets and crimson clover blankets of green, soil becomes textured, crumbly, redolent with throngs of microbes. Catch the whispers of worms sliding, glimpse stranded networks, tendrils of mycorrhizae weave with webs of roots in the original carbon trade. They swap potent mineral liquids drop by drop for sun-rich plant sugars. Perennials join the joyous fray to hold the earth, annuals with heirloom blueprints, seeds to save, pass legacy along, choices abound to root into wholeness. Dragon carrots, Black Beauty zucchini, Cherokee purple tomatoes, Nova raspberries, 3-pound coffee can asparagus. Golden currant blooms swell to tart fruit globes. Poetry in the dance of scarlet runner beans and rufous hummingbirds, choke cherries and mama butterflies, coral hair streaks, banded purples, feast, bring forth their next generation. Hoary bats echo these aerial celebrations, snatching juicy moths on the wing, white-shouldered bumblebees freight golden pollen from flower to nest. There's a hum to this raising of food. Lively communities intersect so that soft weather can blossom from local water cycles of evaporation. Whole systems of health breathe mist skyward to return as blessed rain. The grand circle is in good repair again. Once more, we consume with restraint, share with generosity, homes, seeds, food, team up, wrap families within the wonder of this work. Every day a joyous picnic. We can walk, roll, bike, even sing across the bridge, above the chasm, back from the precipice, to embrace courage, enact hope. There's all the breath in the world to cherish. Together, we reach for air that tastes clean, a shower cascading delight over thirsty lungs. This is emergency preparedness.
Thanks, Kate. And that concludes our evening tonight. We are continuing with music and some light refreshments in the back. We hope you take time to spend some time in community with one another, discussing these wonderful stories that we were able to hear. I want to give a shout out to all the co-hosts that put this wonderful event together: Families for a Livable Climate, Climate Smart Missoula, Missoula County, and All Nations Health Center, and the wonderful planning team that was together. I know Caitlin sent lots of emails and things that a lot of us, she had to be like, hey guys, no one responded. We're like, oh yeah, we care, we really do. And I want to thank each of you for being here and just demonstrating that you care and that you want to work together to solve this problem and make a better future for our children and grandchildren and so forth. And let's give it up for all of our storytellers. I appreciate you coming forward and writing these stories and sharing them with us tonight. And I'm just going to give an introduction to our wonderful musician for this evening, Britt Arneson. So Britt is an Alaskan folk singer-songwriter and moved to Montana to study under the region's many bluegrass veterans and has become an integral part of the scene here, and plays the upright bass, mandolin, and guitar, and was the first female to join the longtime Missoula institution Pinegrass, and now fronts the band. So please enjoy this unique music from the original writer herself. Thanks.